And, somebody was just asking me recently if, was it hard to stay on my plant-based diet during the pandemic? And I said, it's like asking me if I was out at sea with just a bunch of men, because there wasn't a woman there, would I fall for a man? It's
Right.
like, no, it's not. It's too in me. Like I know myself too well. I know what I like. I know what I'm
Yeah.
going to be doing.
Season 3 of the PlantStrong podcast explores those Galileo moments where you seek to understand the real truth around your health and dare to see the world through a different lens. This season, we honor those courageous seekers who are paving the way for you and me. So grab your telescope, point it towards your future, and let's get PlantStrong together. Welcome to the PlantStrong podcast. I hope you're all doing fantastically well. I'm Rip Esselstyn, and at the start of season 3, I huddled with my team to brainstorm potential guests that we could have on the podcast. And I wanted to know who would be on your wish list of people to talk plants. Well, today's guest was right at the very top of this list. Her name is Tig Notaro. She's a comedian and actress known for her very subtle yet hilarious deadpan delivery in her TV shows, films, podcasts, stand-up, and on this podcast. In fact, her new film called Army of the Dead that we discussed in the interview was just released on Netflix last week, and it is a must-see of a blockbuster film. But what you may not know about Tig is her traumatic health story and her subsequent journey to plants. It was in 2012, as you're going to hear her recount today. And in the span of just a few weeks, Tig developed and actually almost succumbed to C. diff, which is a potentially deadly infection that I'll explain in a little more detail. And then just days later, her mom died unexpectedly after hitting her head after a fall. Her relationship ended with her partner. And if that isn't enough, shortly thereafter that, she was diagnosed with breast cancer and went through treatment and surgery. I mean, soak all that in for just a second. I'm not sure how you even begin to process all that in such a truncated amount of time. But part of Tig's journey to recovery was actually getting back on that stage almost immediately to talk about it with vulnerability in her usual candor. But she also started researching how to best take care of herself and improve not just her health, but also the health of her family. And guess where her research led her? You guessed it, plants. Being PlantStrong. And in 2016, Tig and her now wife, Stephanie, and their 2 sons went all in on plant-based nutrition, and she has been a fierce advocate ever since. She had her Galileo moment, and the changes have been profound. Even during the pandemic last year, since she couldn't be on the road, she was so moved and inspired by all things plants that she took a nutritional course to become certified in plant-based nutrition. I think that's pretty darn cool. So, yes, Tig is famous for her stand-up, her podcasts, her TV shows and movies, but we were fortunate enough to talk to Tig because you know what? She loves plants. Tig digs plants. So we hope you too will support her work and her PlantStrong journey. Welcome, Tig Notaro. Hey everybody, welcome to the PlantStrong podcast. I have a super special guest today, Tig Notaro, who I'm sure many of you have heard of. And this is very refreshing for me, Tig, because normally on the podcast, this is my third year with the podcast,
Okay.
but normally we have doctors that have reversed heart disease, right?
Yep.
Or we have scientists and PhDs that talking about the microbiome
Sure.
and reversing type 2 diabetes, or we have biochemists that talk about how you can turn off and turn on certain cancers depending upon the protein that you're eating. Or we have physicians talking about preventing Alzheimer's, or like world-class athletes talking about what plant-based can do for performance and recovery. And so it's really nice to have a comedian, right, on the podcast. Because believe it or not, Tig, the only other comedian that I've had on the podcast was this kind of little known hack. He was on the Comedy Central channel for about 25 years. He had the Daily Show, Jon Stewart. I don't,
Sure.
maybe not. You haven't heard of him?
Vaguely familiar. Is he plant-based?
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Okay. I didn't know that.
Yeah. Tracy, his wife, came to one of our, so since 2010, I've been throwing these 7-day medical immersion programs where people come and they really learn about the lifestyle and the nuts and bolts of it. And Tracy Stewart, John's wife, came to one in, I think, 2018. And afterwards, she went back to John and told him everything that she knew, and he jumped in. But before that, I think he was vegetarian.
Oh, okay. When did he become plant-based?
2019.
Oh, okay. All right.
Yeah.
So fairly recent.
Yeah, fairly recently. And he actually, he came to we had one of the premieres of, have you seen the documentary, The Game Changers?
Yeah.
Yeah. So he came to the premiere of that in New York City, and that's when I first met him. And
I think I was at some sort of premiere in LA for that.
Okay. Yeah. Yep. There was one in LA as well.
Yeah, I was at that.
Excellent. Fantastic. Love it. So I want to talk about a multitude of things with you. You know, now that I got you, right? This is so
look, the feeling is mutual.
Well, good. So I'm trying to think where to start. So I think what I would love is, so the other night I watched the documentary Tig, which I had not seen, saw it for the first time. And for people that haven't seen Tig, that don't know your story, I think it's a nice, you had a heck of a moment in 2012 that really might help people that don't know your story. If you could paint that picture, I think that might be a great place to start.
Sure. I in a 4-month period of time, I had the intestinal disease. Well, first I had pneumonia, and then I had the intestinal disease called C. diff, and then
can you tell people that don't know what is C. diff?
C. diff, I mean, my understanding is that, C. diff is a bacteria that is in most people's guts, and it is completely fine when it's interacting with other bacteria in your gut. But when the other bacteria is cleared out of your system and C. diff is left alone to thrive, it'll just eat your insides, and and you can contract C. diff from taking antibiotics, and antibiotics can clear out all of the other bacteria, or is that your understanding?
Tig is actually spot on with her understanding of C. diff. In fact, after this interview, because I wanted to be 100% sure I was giving you accurate information, I reached out to gut health specialist and author Dr. Alan Desmond, who's going to be on the podcast in just a few weeks, to get his thoughts on C. diff. And he described just how serious and potentially fatal this can be. In fact, he said, quote unquote, C. diff is a type of bacteria that can live in your gut microbiome. And about 1 in 20 people carry C. diff in their large bowel, and it generally doesn't cause any problems. However, if the gut microbiome's normal balance is severely disrupted, for example, by certain antibiotics, a critical illness, or if a person's immune system is compromised, harmful forms of C. diff can flourish and produce toxins that can cause the large bowel to become inflamed. And sadly, in very severe cases, this illness can be fatal. So Tig knows just how fortunate she was. Do you know how you got it? Do you have any idea?
I think it was from antibiotics,
Yeah.
from having pneumonia.
Mm-hmm.
Uh, and yeah, so when I was sick, and it can potentially be deadly. It's a very scary disease to have. It's hard to get a hold of it when it gets really intense and serious, which it did in my case. And then right when I got out of the hospital, I think it was 10 days later, my mother tripped. A couple of days later, she tripped and fell, hit her head, and died. And then my girlfriend and I split up shortly after my mother's funeral. And then I was diagnosed with invasive breast cancer. And that was all in 4 months.
Yeah. And was that invasive breast cancer? Was that in both breasts, one breast?
Both, both. I ended up having a double mastectomy. And at the time, um, it had been suggested a time or two by people to not have a double mastectomy and to maybe try and do veganism or raw food. I was not vegan at the time, and I don't know how I would respond now, but it is the option that I went with was
Yeah.
the double mastectomy.
Yeah. Well, it's my father, who spent almost 40 years at the Cleveland Clinic. He was a
Hmm.
general surgeon, and his specialty was the thyroid, the parathyroid, and the breast cancer. And
Uh-huh.
um, so I've heard a lot about that. And in fact, God, just about a couple months ago, I had a woman named Christy Funk. I don't know if
Uh-huh.
you've heard of Christy at all.
No.
She wrote a book called Breast, the Owner's Manual, and
Okay.
she is a breast surgeon. She's out in LA, and she actually worked with Sheryl Crow with her breast cancer, and Angelina
Okay.
Jolie with her breast cancer.
Uh-huh.
And she really discovered plant-based nutrition in about 2017,
Okay.
and is now just fiercely supportive of it.
Hmm. Yeah,
Um,
it's hard not to be once you get a certain amount of information,
yeah, yeah.
you know.
So talking about, getting that information. So you grew up in Mississippi and Texas, right?
Yes.
Yeah,
Yeah. We spent a couple of years in New Jersey, but mainly Texas and Mississippi. That's where I connect to and where I spent most of my time and family and friends are.
yeah. And did you guys just eat anything under the sun? Did you have, I mean,
I mean,
how,
yeah, yeah, pretty much. I mean, it's in Mississippi. My town is an hour outside of New Orleans, and so there was a lot of anywhere from Cajun food to Texas barbecue to Cheetos.
yeah,
All of that. Snickers bars.
exactly.
Yeah.
So, so this season of the Plant Strong podcast
Hmm.
is when I'm really asking the people that I'm talking with when and how they had their Galileo moment, when you kind of look through the telescope and you
Hmm.
kind of saw the truth when it came to nutrition, and it hit you so hard that it informed kind of the path that you chose. When did that happen?
Well, after all of the events that we just talked about, they happened in 2012, and it, because I'm a public figure, there was a lot of news around me being ill, and it was an exciting moment that I could resurface and tell everybody that I'm doing well and I'm alive and I made it through all of that. And then the reality is that I was still struggling with a lot of issues with my stomach, and I had a lot of just physical pain, and um, and it just didn't seem to go away, and it wasn't really a fun, triumphant part of my story. So I just kind of kept it to myself for the most part, and unloaded that information pretty consistently on to my wife. And I every day I feel like I would turn to her and be like, "Oh my gosh, I'm in so much pain. Oh my gosh, I my stomach hurts, and oh my gosh, just my back. I just was struggling." And
Not a good way to be.
no, no, it was, I really didn't know what to do. And we had just had twins, and they were in the 99th percentile. They're just gigantic children. And so I'm like, what in the hell am I going to do? I'm in pain. And I have these large children that are obviously going to need to be picked up. And I want to pick them up,
Yeah.
but I was just like, I really don't know what to do. And I went on tour to do stand up. And this one particular time, right, it was about to be my kid's first birthday, and I just thought, I have got to do something for the sake of my children,
Yeah.
and not just for me to feel better, but for me to be a present and capable parent. I just don't want to be complaining or in pain. I don't want that in their life. And so I was on the road for 2 weeks. And when I left Los Angeles, I thought, I'm going to be removed from my day to day. I'm going to take this time to really research and read, watch documentaries, and just talk to people and inform myself to the best of my ability. Because I keep hearing that plant-based food can heal so many medical issues and aches and pains. And so, why would I not at least educate myself and maybe try it? So that's what I did. After every show, I'd go back to my hotel room and I'd watch documentaries, I'd read, I'd talk to my friend. My friend who was opening for me happened to know so much about health and plant-based food. And so I was pretty sold that it was something that I needed to try. And so I tried. And I mean, as the days went on, it just became clearer and clearer that that shift in my life was alleviating so much pain and discomfort in so many ways.
So you dove in. What year was this?
This was only 2016.
Okay.
Um, and since that change that I made, I've decided to every year on my son's birthday to make a change in my life that will improve me in a way to be hopefully a better parent and a better
Yeah.
to be more available and capable, and and it's usually around health.
What,
So
so plant-based was one. And how do you refer to yourself when it comes to eating? Do you say that you're vegan, plant-based,
I go
plants?
back and forth. I go back and forth. Uh,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, I have not, I would say I eat probably 75% whole food plant-based.
Yep.
Um, but I'm not to that 100% mark, and I
Right.
would love to be. Uh, but I'm fully vegan. My kids are vegan. My wife is vegan.
They're on board. I love it.
Oh yeah, my sons are 4 years old. They'll be 5 in June. But when we go out to eat or we go to anyone's house and there's any food that comes by, they're they're both very hardcore. They're like, "Is that vegan?"
Right.
Um, it's really something.
It is. It is. I know. I've got, believe it or not, I'm older than you, and I've got some young kids as well. I've got a 7-year old, I've got
Okay.
a 12-year old, and a 14-year old, and they wear it with so much pride. It is
Yeah.
so fantastic to
Well,
see.
I feel like kids are really coming to it now.
Yep.
And I think that even just a year or two ago, it wasn't as accepted with younger kids, whereas now people are telling me all the time that their kids are coming home and wanting to save the planet and
Yep.
wanting to eat plant-based and I'm like, oh my gosh, my kids they've been on this. They've been on that. They became vegan when they were 1, when our whole family became vegan. But yeah, they're hardcore.
Tig, the PlantStrong era is afoot. Really,
Hmm.
it really is. It is
It's
here,
exciting.
and it is now. So I'd love to hear. So you said that every year
Hmm.
around their birthday,
Yeah.
you kind of do something to improve
Hmm.
yourself
Hmm.
health wise.
Yeah.
Can you tell me about some of the other things you've done?
Well, and to be fair, it's only a few years,
Okay.
right? They're only 4, and I started when they were 1.
I
Um,
understand, but plant-based is a big thing. And I'm wondering if you got other big things.
well, they're not that huge. It's just that You know, I guess everybody uses New Year's Eve as their time to make a
Yeah.
shift. And I try to not do too many things at once to change my behaviors. I try to just really focus on the one thing that I'm trying to incorporate. And that's really all I've done. And when they turned 2, I made a point to start uh, walking every day.
Hmm.
And and it's such a basic thing to incorporate, but it's so
Yeah.
crucial.
Yeah.
And
But let me ask you this. So
yeah.
before that, were you not moving regularly? Did you have an exercise program at all or not really?
No, I didn't have it. I used to exercise. I used to do long distance cycling. When I was a kid, I played soccer, but I
Mhm.
also started smoking when I was a teenager. And then when I was a young adult, I started getting really into cycling. And I abandoned soccer, I think when I picked up cigarettes. But I
Yeah.
quit when I was 25, and I'm 50 now. And I remember I told myself that I don't want to be 50 wishing I had quit smoking when I was 25.
Uh-huh.
And so I quit when I was 25, and it
Can
feels
you
pretty.
can
Go
you
ahead.
remember? So when you were 25 and you quit, was that hard to quit or was
It
it?
was it was brutal. It was so brutal. And it's interesting because I have told people my whole life that when I'm asked if I have regrets anywhere in my life, and I always think, well, obviously things haven't gone in certain ways that I wanted all the time, but I don't feel like I have regrets. Everything that's happened has led me to where I am and all that kind of stuff. But over the pandemic, I did realize, you know what? I regret smoking. That is the one thing in my life that I wish I never inhaled a single cigarette. But yeah, it was brutal. And what I did to stop was I went and bought, this might sound like it makes no sense at first, but I went and bought those cigars, Swisher Sweets cigars, and I just stayed home for like a month and didn't socialize much, and I inhaled Swisher Sweets and till I made myself sick,
Uh-huh.
and I never wanted to inhale any type of smoke into my body ever again. And I'm the epitome of the reformed smoker.
You sound so. Would you call yourself an intense, competitive person?
I don't know if I'm intense. I know I'm intense in ways, but I'm not. I mean, I did one of those long distance bicycle rides where you raise money for a cause.
Yeah.
And that was, I think, the moment when I realized I wasn't really competitive because there's hundreds of people and I was riding my bike without holding on to the handlebars and I was just kicking back and just riding my bike. You know what I mean?
Yeah, but that's not what I mean by competitive though.
Okay, what do you
I'm
mean?
not talking about sports. I'm
Okay.
I'm talking about in the game of life,
Oh,
right?
then sure, yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. There's an intensity and a competitiveness that, just in in researching for this interview, right?
Hmm.
I've seen some things that I'm like, wow, I like what I see, and this person has got a serious fire in her. She
What
doesn't
would
get
fall under competitive?
what's that? It does, yeah.
Well, I'm saying what did you come across that you feel is
Oh,
competitive?
well, so I've been an athlete my whole life, right?
Hmm.
And when I saw you in Tig,
Hmm.
right? After, well, for one, getting up on stage after you've been diagnosed with cancer, but I don't. It was shortly thereafter.
Yeah.
That to me is a certain amount of intensity and competitiveness and drive. Most
Hmm.
people I think would, they'd be lying in bed, like
Yeah.
crying
There's
and
a lot of that too, but yeah, trust
yeah,
me.
but you got yourself up, and then
Yeah.
6 months later, I could when you were pacing backstage, getting ready to
Uh-huh.
go out there, I knew that feeling because I felt it so many times when I'm getting ready to compete or do something big or put on
Yeah.
a big event. And there's something inside of you that's like, I've got to do this because something's speaking to me inside. And if I don't do it, that I will regret.
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
So,
No doubt.
um, yeah, yeah.
Yeah, I
Um,
feel like when I was younger, I took so many risks that were potentially life-threatening risks.
mm,
Whereas I feel like that part of me, that risk taker part of me,
mm,
shifted in a positive direction where I take life-changing risks rather than life-threatening risks.
right. Can
And
you,
go
yeah,
ahead.
go, no, you go ahead.
Oh, I I just haven't ever regretted one.
Right.
Whereas there's so much uh, just horror when I look back on the risks that I took as a kid and
Can you give me an example of one?
from my childhood.
Yeah, something that was life threatening that you're like, oh my God, I can't believe I'm alive today.
Oh my God, where to begin? I I there is one that on my podcast I told the story and then I realized after I told the story I didn't want any kid hearing that story and getting any idea. And so what I did was I told the story on my podcast and then I bleeped out the minute that I told the story. And then people to this day are
Yeah.
like, "What the hell were you saying there?" And I'm like, "I will never tell you." So I don't, that's only because I truly, I would tell you, but you would have to promise me you wouldn't air it because I really wouldn't want any kid to do anything like what I did.
Yeah. If you want to tell me, we'll bleep it out.
Yes, my friend and I, it's so stupid, but we thought it was hilarious.
Yeah.
Hilarious. And that's why I would never want that out there for
Yeah.
anyone to hear.
No,
So yeah,
no,
not cool.
you don't want Mav and Flynn hearing about that.
Max
Max,
and
thank you.
Max and Finn, or
Max
Mav and
and
Flynn. Maybe I'll rename them. Exactly.
okay.
So yeah, I feel like I shifted my life-threatening
Yeah.
bold moves to life-changing bold
Well,
moves.
and just being a stand-up comedian in and of
Mhm.
itself is a bold move. Um,
Well, people always say that, but if it's in your blood, it's in your heart
yeah.
and soul, it's not bold. I don't think it's
Wow.
just a part of what is natural to you.
Well, okay. Well, let me ask you this. So, if that's not bold,
Hmm.
what about you going up on stage topless after your double mastectomy? That's pretty bold, isn't it?
Yeah, that was bold. It was bold, but also it really made me laugh to think of going on stage to expose the scars of my double mastectomy and not talk about the scars or my double mastectomy. I wanted
Mhm.
to go on stage and just do regular run-of-the-mill comedy while I exposed my scars. And I thought that it would be potentially empowering for myself and anybody else watching it, but I also thought that it was a way to do it and be funny about it by acting like I didn't even know what they were reacting to, you know?
And how did it turn out?
It went really well. I have to say, uh, when I was doing it for myself and other cancer survivors, and it didn't even dawn on me until men that had never had cancer and people that didn't have any story similar to mine were coming up and saying, take away the fact that you're female or had a double mastectomy or cancer, any of that, the scars, all of it. It's it really was just this is what I heard from other people, that it was inspiring um, to see somebody embrace their body and to have that body positivity. And that I was so touched to hear that from different people. And like I said, men, women, everyone.
Yeah. Do you have, are there like three or four shows that I mean, how many times have you gotten up on stage and done stand up? Would you say 1,000?
Oh my God.
I mean,
Way more than that.
seriously. Wow.
Oh
Wow.
my God. I've been doing this since I was maybe 26.
Okay.
And I'm 50, and I probably get on stage, unless there's a pandemic, I
Right.
probably get on stage, I'd say 150 times
A year.
a year.
Wow. Um, and so, okay. I want to remember, I'll remember what I want to ask you, but first, so what did you do during the pandemic? Were you freaking out that you weren't able to get up on stage? Because it sounds like that's part of who you are.
It is part of who I am, but it was actually oddly a nice,
Reprieve.
yeah, I didn't expect that. And
Oh,
I think it's just also being so used to going all the time and traveling, getting on a flight and driving to a city and driving to a college and flying to the next town and getting up early and going to bed late and all this stuff, that I kind of didn't have a chance to connect with. I probably needed a break. And so being home
yeah.
with Stephanie and what, Mav and Flynn, is that what their names? But yeah, it's nice, I think, to step away and then return. It feels like when you go to sleep at night and then you wake up refreshed and you're ready to start again.
Yeah.
is how it feels to
Well,
me.
what a great gift, I would imagine, for your kids and Stephanie to be home for a while. And
I mean,
you're,
on some days, yes, some days not.
sure, we all can identify with that.
Yeah.
Yeah. We'll be right back with Tig in a sec. But first, I have 3 updates to share with you. First, when we announced the return of our in-person retreat this year, we were bowled over by the response that we got from all of you. Suffice it to say that our team is more than ready to get back together, but we weren't sure if you guys were ready. Well, you absolutely were, so much so that we filled up our Sedona experience super quickly, and we have a long wait list of folks that are interested in attending another PlantStrong retreat. So we called our friends in Black Mountain, North Carolina, just outside Asheville, and we found a week in late September from the 25th to the 30th to be precise, when we could bring the band back together and invite more people from around the globe to come together for an incredible week of learning, fellowship, and a whole lot of laughs. Our schedule, as you can imagine, is jam-packed with daily workouts, cooking demos, small group discussions, talks by my father, Dr. Caldwell B. Esselstyn Jr., my mother, Ann Kreil Esselstyn, the one and only Dr. Michael Clapper, my sister, Jane Esselstyn, cardiologist and lifestyle medicine physician, Dr. Brian Aspel, and many more. So for all the details, click on the link in the show notes or visit plantstrong.com and then select the Black Mountain Retreat. I really, really hope to see you on the mountainside. Second, our first of the new PlantStrong products are on a truck heading to our fulfillment center in Plano, Texas, right this second. I cannot wait to unveil this first phase of delicious new foods for you guys. If you'd like to have early access, visit plantstrongfoods.com and enter your email to be on the list. Finally, I know that food is front and center for most of my listeners. It is for me as well. And whether I'm dishing on the latest food trends that show how the tides are turning, or how we're discovering new products that are packed with nutritional integrity, we all love and connect over food. To that end, we are launching a new mini podcast called PlantStrong Snackables. It will run twice a month and will give you bite-sized nuggets, tasty meal ideas, and foods to get super jazzed over. Watch your inbox. I'll let you know when it's ready. Now, let's dive back in and talk with Tig. So you've done, let's just say, 150 plus shows a year on average since you were 26 years old. So 3,336 shows. I'm making that up. So
It's like, that's impressive.
yeah. Are there 3 or 4 that stand out to you as like, oh my gosh, that was like one of my all-time best performances, like a no-hitter in baseball?
I mean, oddly enough, one of my best sets ever, I had, it's funny that we're talking about health and everything, but I had one of my best sets in my career in 2015, and I collapsed after the performance and was rushed to the hospital. I had the medication that I was on after my diagnosis was causing a lot of cysts, and so I had a cyst burst the second I walked off stage, and I was bleeding internally, just profusely. The doctor said it was like 3 pitchers full of blood. I mean, I was having trouble breathing, and it was so crazy to have this feeling on stage of like, it's so hard to have those kind of shows because not where you're obviously bleeding at the end. That's hard too, I'm sure. But it's hard to have everything line up when you're on. I've found for it to be just, yes, that was the show.
Yeah.
And that happened in Philly, in 2015, and I stepped on stage and went down. So that one, I would have to say that, taking my shirt off for my HBO special, uh,
What
that
about that?
felt,
Yeah. What about that first, the one that it was in Tig, where you basically came out and said, "I've got cancer." How you
I
doing?
mean, that one's the most well known. I mean, it's certainly,
Yeah.
close to my heart and soul because, of what I was going through at the time and the way that people responded and
Hmm.
took care of me, near and far, strangers and loved ones. And but I wouldn't say when I went on stage, I thought, "Oh, this is the set of a lifetime." It
Yeah.
was more of, on a wire, kind of trying to keep my balance as
Yeah.
I try to make light of my diagnosis that I got days ago and the loss of my mother and my breakup and my
Hmm.
inability to eat. I mean, I was walking around with my finger in my belt loop, just to keep my pants up. I was so, I was really, really struggling. I couldn't eat.
Wow.
Um,
Do you get nervous still when you go up on stage? Is that something you experience any longer?
I mean, I don't really. I didn't. I mean, it'll be interesting because I haven't done stand up now in a year and 2 or 3 months.
Right.
And so maybe I'll get nervous, but I I did in early days, and then it started just to become like, and not in a bad way, but it started to become like you going into the office.
Yeah.
And I really don't mean that in a boring way, but you don't, it's like having nerves on your first day of work or getting to know your job, and then you still love your job and it's still exciting, but you're not nervous walking in the door. It's
Yeah.
I would say before the pandemic, I don't think I would have been nervous walking into a sold out football stadium of
Yeah.
people.
Yeah.
It would just be like, oh, this will be interesting. It's not my, first of all, I've never done a sold out football stadium, and I have no interest in doing a sold out football stadium. I like, a tiny club up to like 3,000 seats, but
Hmm.
it's just more people that doesn't make me nervous.
Yeah. Yeah. Do you find that you have a certain outfit that you like to wear when you're because just in what I've seen, you seem
Mhm.
like kind of, sneakers, jeans, and then a really relaxed, shirt.
Sure. Yeah, I mean, when I'm on stage, it's probably what you said.
Yeah.
Comfortable shoes, jeans, comfortable pants. Yeah,
Yeah.
I want to be comfortable.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
I just like the way you dress. I'm like, oh, I like the way she dresses.
Oh,
I
well,
dress like
thanks.
that. Yeah.
Yeah, I
Yeah.
uh, I do find there's a lot of men where I'm like, oh, we could probably
Right.
share, closets if we were the same size.
um, so can we get back to plant-based for a sec?
I would love to.
Okay, let's do it. So 2016, you kind of got the memo,
Hmm.
got 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 into it. Um, did you find it difficult or hard? I mean, difficult or easy to embrace this, or did you have enough information and enough excitement that you just were like into
Yeah,
it?
as soon as I had the information that I had gotten, I was uh, I was so thoroughly
Yeah.
grossed out.
Uh-huh.
And somebody was just asking me recently if, was it hard to stay on my plant-based diet during the pandemic? And I said, it's like asking me if I was out at sea with just a bunch of men, because there wasn't a woman there, would I fall for a man? It's
Right.
like, no, it's not. It's too in me. Like I know myself too well. I know what I like. I know what I'm
Yeah.
going to be doing. And so
Right.
the pandemic, it's also like the pandemic didn't make it hard to find, fruits, vegetables, nuts, seeds, that it didn't make it harder for me to find that stuff.
Yeah. Do you have a particular love affair with any plant-based foods that you like more than others?
Mm, oh my gosh, it's so unfair.
Well,
It's so unfair.
we that's okay. I'd love to hear it.
I mean, I love anywhere from just like just a mix. I just had this bowl that had quinoa and brown rice and avocado and sweet potatoes and um, arugula. I mean, just so delicious.
Yeah.
Uh,
That's what's unfair. It's just so
they're
healthy and
so,
delicious.
yeah, yeah. And before I was plant-based, I liked food. I just didn't have that part
Mhm.
of my personality where I was like, oh, what am I going to eat next? Or, oh, we got to go find the great restaurant in town. Or, none of that. I was like, yeah, let's find some place to eat. When I became plant-based, now when I go on tour, my favorite thing is to land and look up on Happy Cow
Yeah.
where the best restaurant is for plant-based food and go spend my time and hit as many of those restaurants in each town.
Yeah. Do you so you're in Toronto right now, I think you said
Mhm.
filming for the next Star Trek?
Yeah, for the new season,
Yeah.
I have a role on the Star Trek Discovery
Yeah.
uh,
Yeah. Is
series.
that I'm sorry, I'm kind of a little bit ignorant with that. Is that with Chris Pine?
No, no, no,
No.
no. This the movie.
Okay.
This is
Oh,
one of the TV series. Yeah,
gotcha.
yeah,
Gotcha.
yeah,
Okay. All right. I'm with you.
yeah.
And so have you used Happy Cow since you've been there? And have you had some good results?
Well, I come to Toronto regularly for Star Trek. There's a restaurant in town called Planta. I don't know if you're familiar with Planta,
I'm not.
but you
Yeah.
have got to eat at Planta. And then Planta also has, I believe it's a Japanese or sushi plant-based sister
Mhm.
restaurant that they opened a couple of years ago that is, I mean,
Lights out.
oh my gosh, just as delicious as Planta.
Now, do you eat there 2 meals a day or do you have your,
Well, I'm quarantined right now, and so the hotel where I'm staying has given me a personalized menu since I'm going to be in the hotel for so long. So,
nice.
yeah, it's really, really incredible.
Like what did you have for breakfast today?
Oatmeal uh, with a fresh fruit
Yep.
plate and raisins that
Yep.
I mix into to the oats. Yeah.
That's the best
It's
breakfast ever. So
it's
simple,
so good.
so
It's
healthy, so
so good.
satisfying.
In fact, I go to bed so excited to wake up and eat that in the morning. And
Yeah,
once I've finished eating it, I'm so sad that I've finished eating it.
I know. That's why I have to have another bowl later in the day.
Yeah.
Yeah. Any plant-based foods that you really don't like?
Um,
If you were on that boat with those men and this
mhm.
particular eggplant or squash, you wouldn't even eat it.
Well, I love eggplant.
Okay.
And I like squash. I would say, and I know this is so, it's going to really upset a lot of people.
Yeah.
I don't hate this, but I feel so deathly neutral about watermelon.
Uh-huh. Let me tell you what you can do to turn up the volume on that.
Okay.
You take a lime or lemon
Mm-hmm.
wedge. You
Mm-hmm.
you squeeze it on top of it, and all
Okay.
of a sudden it lights that thing on fire.
Okay. I used to have it with salt as a kid.
Yeah.
Um, but I think what is it, the yellow watermelon I like more than red watermelon.
Uh-huh.
But red watermelon, I mean, snooze fest, if you ask me.
You got to get the right one. It's got to be really hard, and they make seedless ones now that are just incredible.
Listen,
I,
I've heard this a million times. I've
okay.
had all of those
Yeah.
snooze fest. But
Okay.
I'm going to do what you say, and I'm going to squeeze some lemon on
Yeah.
there.
Yeah.
I'll let you know
Uh,
how it goes.
Good. What about do you snack during the day on anything in particular?
Well, I see the How Not to Die book behind you, and
Yeah,
I
that's
would
one.
say
Yeah.
that diet is pretty much that's that's the closest to a diet I follow is the How Not to Die diet.
Yeah.
Um, and um, and I would say my snacks would be just very run of the mill. I have an apple every day.
Yep.
I have blueberries every day. I have a handful of mixed nuts every day. I have a container in the pantry that has a mixture of sunflower seeds, watermelon seeds. I do love watermelon seeds.
Okay.
Um,
No snooze
as,
fest there.
no, I love watermelon seeds. So yeah, I have a nice mixture of a handful of seeds that I eat. And then, like I had mentioned earlier, that I'm not 100% whole food plant-based. So I would say when I'm not eating something as healthy as apples or bananas or blueberries or anything like that, um, my sons eat the what is it? Annie's mac and cheese,
Sure. Absolutely. Yeah.
and I'll
Have some
shovel,
leftovers.
yeah, I'll shovel some of that
Yeah.
in, and
Yeah. It's when that's around, it's sometimes hard not to
yeah,
eat some of the
yeah,
leftovers.
right, yeah. So that's basically what I've become is the parent that shovels in some
Right.
of the junk food over the sink.
Yeah. Yeah. That's not too bad. I just so you know, like today, you know what this is? This is a sumo. Yeah, it's a sumo orange. You can see it's like a little,
Uh-huh.
anyway, these things are amazing. And then
Yeah.
this is a champagne mango that I am
Okay.
just in love with. And I usually have two or three of these a day that I snack on.
Wow.
Yeah, yeah. Cut it in half, and then I just peel the meat off the skin, and I eat it. It's so incredible.
You know what I found, which I wasn't familiar with before the pandemic, is the golden kiwis,
Yeah,
which
yeah,
I had never had. I'd only had the green kiwis, which
yeah,
I liked, but they were too sour. In fact, while I'm talking about them,
yeah,
it's making my mouth water.
yeah,
Um, but I realized I I love the golden kiwis are my absolute favorite.
yeah. It's funny you say that because I find the golden ones are just for me a snooze fest. The other ones are the ones that I really like.
Yeah, not me, sir.
Yeah, yeah. um, I would love to. Well, so as I was doing a little of my research, I put in Tig,
Hmm.
and what came up, the only thing that came up
Yeah.
was this new role that you're having in Army of the Dead,
Yes.
right? And
Yeah.
I mean, this is something that's coming out on Netflix May 21st, right around the corner.
It actually just came out today in theaters.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
How excited are you about this? I mean, and can you like tell the audience a little bit about like how you came to be in this role?
Yeah, I came to be in this role in not the most positive way. I was replacing an actor who already filmed the movie, and
Yeah.
he was being called out for for harassment,
Allegedly.
allegedly.
Yeah.
uh, harassing women, underage women.
Yeah.
So they erased him from the movie, and they used a green screen to me to replace his part. So it's an action heist zombie film. It is the biggest budget. I've never done anything. The closest I've come is being on Star Trek, where that's like
Yeah.
an action drama, but I'm barely part of the action in Star Trek. So this is a whole different world for me. But yeah, it's in theaters today,
What is
May
it today?
14th,
Yeah. Yeah.
and
Well,
then on Netflix, May 21st.
yeah. Yeah. Well, and Zack Snyder is the director who, if anybody knows some of his movies, he's huge. And I watched a little clip. You were on the Tonight Show with Jimmy Fallon just the other
Uh-huh.
day, and the buzzword is that you are sexy AF, and
Yeah,
which is awesome. Um,
hilarious.
and what's funny is all of a sudden I connected all these dots because people are like, how did Zack Snyder know that Tig was the perfect person to fill in for Chris,
Yeah.
to Elia? And oh my God, she's brilliant. She's amazing. And the way she's smoking that, maybe that goes back to when you smoked, right? Back in your day.
Well, it's funny because my character was supposed to smoke a cigarette, and I couldn't bring myself to have my character smoke a cigarette. So I asked if I could smoke a Swisher Sweet,
Yeah.
which I wanted to tie it to my quitting.
You did.
Yeah.
Beautiful, beautiful. But there's this scene. Are you pouring gas on yourself?
No, I'm
Or,
pouring gas into my helicopter while
okay.
I'm smoking my cigar.
Right.
And when that picture came out, or that moment came out in the trailer, that's when people started texting me that I was trending on Twitter for being,
Yeah. Yeah.
I guess it was hashtag hot tig. It's so hilarious to turn 50 and then be,
Well,
found hot or sexy is
yeah. Well,
just so funny.
I love what you said on Jimmy Fallon when it's like, well, that'll help light a fire underneath Stephanie.
Exactly.
Hey,
Well, actually, Stephanie was saying, "Where has everybody been all these years?" So,
right. She's known all along.
yeah, yeah.
Absolutely. But here's the thing where I connected all the dots and why I thought that Zack Schneider was so brilliant. And that is in the documentary Tig, occasionally, I think you went back to your cousins or relatives. I think it might have been in
Hmm.
Mississippi or,
Yeah,
or,
yeah,
or Houston.
yeah,
And one of your cousins was like, oh yeah, you look like Tom Cruise in Top Gun.
yeah, yeah,
So he knew
yeah.
way back then that you had this in you.
Right. Yeah, for sure. I mean, people have told me for years that they
Yeah.
thought I looked like Tom Cruise. And I've joked that I would get into action films, and I can't believe that I actually have gotten into one of the biggest action films.
Yeah. Yeah. Well, you must be so excited. I mean, who would have thought your career has taken so many twists and turns and
It really has.
yeah, and and I love how creative it is. I mean, you did stand up, you're an author, right?
Hmm. Yeah.
You've been in documentaries, you've done podcasts for years, right?
Yeah. Right. Yes.
Yeah. I
I
mean,
have an advice podcast now, and I also have a podcast with Cheryl Hines she's from Curb Your Enthusiasm.
yeah.
She and I do a weekly show called True Story, where we talk about a new documentary every week, and it
Talked about
just
any of these. Have you talked about the game changers or forks over knives?
we haven't yet. We're going to eventually do that. Cheryl's a vegetarian. I'm hoping she'll make the plant-based switch.
Yeah.
But yeah, we haven't talked about any of those documentaries yet, but all
Right.
in good time.
Right. How do you like doing the podcasts? And you also have
Oh,
what?
I love doing my podcasts. Yeah, the other one is called Don't Ask Tig, and I have a new guest on every week, and we give people advice who call in.
Yeah.
It's really fun. Yeah.
No, I listened to part of the episode you had with Sunny,
Oh
not
yeah. Yeah.
where you,
Sunny's great.
yeah, but where you talked about, well, a couple things that kind of, I was like, wow, that's wild. Where Whoopi Goldberg gave you her shoes.
Yeah. 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 After I walked off stage at The View,
Yeah.
I was talking to Whoopi and told her that I just used to watch her one person shows as a kid, and just what a fan I was growing up. And she said, "Oh, well, I'm a fan of yours too, Tig." And she bends down and takes her shoes off and hands them to me, and it was the weirdest, funniest moment. And
Yeah.
so, and they were like these weird Christmas high heel shoes that have Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer on the front of them, and so every Christmas they're on our mantle. So
Did you ever try them on? Do they fit you?
I haven't tried them on, but I think my wife and my sister-in-law, a bunch of people ran around the house in Whoopi Goldberg shoes as soon as I brought them home. So
Nice.
it was a big day at the house.
Absolutely. And then the other thing from that one episode was you said that you had Ann Richards' autograph.
Uh-huh. Yeah.
And, which is wild. I've met Ann several times back in the 90s, and my daughter goes to the Ann Richards School for Women.
Oh, really?
So we think a lot of Ann Richards. She was such a trailblazer and so
Oh
amazing.
my gosh.
Yeah.
So incredible. I think about how lucky I was to have lived in Texas and Austin. I lived in Austin when she was the governor, and it was just such a proud moment to be there then. I
Yeah.
mean, I had so many great times and years in Texas, but having Ann Richards as the governor when you're living there is especially magical.
What years were you in Austin?
Um, let's
Remember?
see. When was I there? I was 22, 23. So like 94, 93,
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
something
Yeah.
like that.
It's a
Yeah.
good time to be in Austin.
Yeah. Were you there then?
Oh yeah, I've been here. I came
Uh-huh.
to school here in '82 and
Oh, wow. Okay.
never left.
Oh, nice.
So I've seen a lot of change.
We go there for Thanksgiving.
Yeah,
Yeah.
great. Well,
Yeah.
please, if you come this Thanksgiving, I'd love to treat you to a meal.
I'll take you up on it for sure.
That'd be awesome. So I know we're running up on time here. Let me just ask you a couple more questions. So
Okay.
as a comedian, you're probably always looking for material,
Uh-huh.
and your radar is probably always up. The one thing from it was one of your stand-ups that was on HBO, I think, where I know that Stephanie used to kind of provide you with some material.
Oh, yeah.
Talked about when she said, how do you have sex with a baby, right?
Yeah. Right.
Hilarious. But now that you have kids, because I have kids, and I'm like, oh my God, if I was a stand-up, comedian, this is gold. I mean, do they just provide you with endless material?
Well, yeah, I always tell people that I live in a house full of writers. I mean, between Stephanie and Max and Finn, and now my father-in-law lives with us, so there's a full house. Aside from finding my own material, it's really, really coming from the writers in my house that just hand me this material left and right. And while I'm out of town, Stephanie calls and just tells me just nonstop thing. You know how it is with kids, just nonstop things that kids say.
Is Fluff still alive?
Oh yeah. Fluff is still alive, and in the pandemic we decided it would be a good idea to adopt 2 more cats. So we have 3 cats, and Fluff I think was not thrilled at first, but she's reluctantly joining the street gang in our house. We call our place Kitty City now.
Gotcha. What about Pam? Pam, the one with the whole Taylor Dane thing. Is Pam plant-based? Have you helped her out at all?
Pam is so far from being plant-based.
Okay. Well, there
She's
you
probably one of the furthest of friends that I have from being plant-based. I'm still friends with Pam. I haven't seen her in a while, probably a couple of years. But
Yeah,
she happened to be always with me
good.
when Taylor Dane appeared. I'm
Would you say that most of your friends and family are supportive of this change?
absolutely. I remember my stepfather, who's very, he's an attorney and he was in the military and he's just a particular way with everything. And when I started talking to him about the power of food, of plant-based food, he heard and he was open to it and he was glad to see that I was having success and then he went home after he visited us and then he called me or came back in town the next time and he said that he had done a lot of reading and researching and he has to say that he 100% believes in that diet. Not that he sticks by it or eats it 100%, but I have a frozen food service mailed to him every month.
Right.
Uh, and so he eats, I would say, half of his meals are plant-based now because of that.
Great. Tig, um, this has been a fantastic hour. I really, 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 really appreciate it. And I
Uh,
didn't even ask you how you got your name because I wanted to tell you how I got my name, but that'll have to wait for another time.
my brother made it up.
Okay. Okay.
There you go.
Um, um, so can I get you to say, if you're comfortable with it, I'm Tig and I'm PlantStrong?
I'm Tig and I'm PlantStrong.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
Peace, Engine 2. Keep it PlantStrong, Tig.
Thank you so much
you.
for having me on.
Thank you, Tig, for making the time for the PlantStrong podcast in between filming for the upcoming season of Star Trek. She has so many projects going on, including the new films Army of the Dead and Together. You can listen to her 2 weekly podcasts, Don't Ask Tig and True Story with Tig and Cheryl, where they give their hilarious spin on documentaries. In fact, I really need to have her back on to ask her thoughts on Forks Over Knives or The Game Changers or Cowspiracy or Seaspiracy. That would be a lot of fun. And hopefully you'll be able to catch her on the road again very soon doing her stand-up, which she absolutely loves and adores. We dig Tig because, once again, she isn't afraid to stand on her various platforms and be brave enough to talk about how plant-based eating has changed her family's life for the better. So thank you, Tig, and thank you, listener, for listening. We'll see you all next week. Thank you for listening to the PlantStrong podcast. You can support the show by taking a quick minute to follow us wherever you listen to your favorite podcasts. Leaving us a positive review and sharing the show with your network is another great way to help us reach as many people as possible with the exciting news about plants. Thank you in advance for your support. It means everything. Have you had your own Galileo moment that you'd like to share? What happened when you stepped into the arena and shed the beliefs that you thought to be true? I'd love to hear about it. Visit plantstrongpodcast.com to submit your story and to learn more about today's guests and sponsors. The PlantStrong podcast team includes Carrie Barrett, Lori Kordowich, Amy Mackey, Patrick Gavin, and Wade Clark. This season is dedicated to all of those courageous truth seekers who weren't afraid to look through the lens with clear vision and hold firm to a higher truth. Most notably, my parents, Dr. Caldwell B. Esselstyn Jr. and Ann Cryle Esselstyn. Thanks for listening.